we've had that where we get a guest on and we're like, oh, they're either good at the interview or we're good at the game, or sucked at the game but we're good at the interview. Like a lot of people.
I'm sure some are good at neither.
Yeah, there's some where you're just like, please leave.
You guys ready to rock?
Yeah.
Is that already good to go? All right, so here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Happy Hour Podcast. My name's Ray. I'm sitting here with Psycrotes. Unfortunately, Mike or Matt couldn't make it today. So, Psycrotes, we've been seeing a lot of you lately. Last week,
I'm like the last 6 episodes.
Yeah. Last week was War Pigs Volume 3, which chronicled our wrestling career. And this week, we're joined by local comedian Tommy Sinbazo.
Hi.
How you doing, man?
How's it going? Hi, everybody.
It's not often we get to have...
and he's rocking the Amon Amarth shirt.
Yeah. Love Amon Amarth.
And of course, COVID. COVID's happening, so you don't really get a lot of in-studio guests. Tommy's local. He came up. He's going to be hanging out with us today. So, Tommy, let's just get right into it. You've been doing comedy for 15 years.
Yeah.
So how has that been? I know you've opened for Ralphie May.
Yeah.
What was it like when you got into comedy? And I know it's fun because when I got into wrestling, the first match I wrestled, I'm just kind of like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
So how was it when you first got into comedy, and how has it built and flourished?
I always wanted to, like when I was a little kid, I loved dinosaurs, right? And in the first grade, they asked everybody, what do you want to be when you grow up? But I couldn't spell paleontologist. But I could spell comic, so I just wrote comic. And since then, I was the MC of my kindergarten graduation. My parents did a California Raisins tribute act, like where my mom made costumes. They look like turds. Like you climb inside this turd and put your face through it. You would then brown your face and wear tights and Converses and stuff, and then we would lip sync to California Raisin. Like,
oh wow!
But that got us on WQSR. We were in parades. We were, as a child minstrel, it really helped.
Hey, it wasn't blackface, it was brown face.
I'm a raisin, guys.
Don't worry, it's only a raisin. Have you ever seen the California Raisins? That's what I am.
You mean that Motown act? Like, no, they're raisins.
Our younger viewers are like, who? The California?
Yeah. They're like, what the hell is this?
No, but so since then, I had always circled around doing comedy and being on stage and stuff, and I did 11 years improv. And finally, it was a buddy of mine that I went to college with. It was he got me into doing improv.
Okay.
And then he was like, "Now it's time to come do stand up."
Nice.
And back then, there really wasn't any place to do comedy. There was you had the Comedy Factory, you had Magooby's, and the Improv had closed. So there was just 2 places. There weren't any little open mics.
Yeah.
But there was one up in Hunt Valley at Damon's Bar and Grill.
I remember Damon's.
Yeah.
Because Damon's has became, 17 other things so far since it was Damon's. It was Damon's, it was Bateman's, it was something else. Now it's some weird thing, like some honeycomb looking logo type thing for it. It's literally, and it was the Italian restaurant for Basta Pasta.
Yeah.
Also.
But it was back when it was a rib joint, every Sunday night they had open mic comedy. And I went a couple nights just to check it out, and then I had my 5-minute set, and I got up all nervous, and you don't really know what you're doing when you start. If anybody is out there thinking of starting to doing comedy, just do it.
Yeah.
Because your first time, it's not about crushing it. There's not going to be agents in the crowd telling you, like, hey, you're going to be famous. It's all about just getting over that hump of doing it.
Yeah.
And then I sucked, but I kept doing it, and I got better.
Yeah.
And and now, Magooby's, I headlined my first time at Magooby's at the beginning of the pandemic. Been to 5 countries.
Oh, man.
Worked for, done Ralphie May. Who else? Brian Regan. Louis C.K. came to town last week, and it was one of those things where when we got a call from Magooby's while we were online, we were doing our podcast, so we were, people are watching.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, please don't let this be the call to work with Louis C.K.
You went to that show, didn't you?
Yeah, we went to the Thursday show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and me and my wife, we're huge Louis C.K. fans. And as soon as I got the notification from Magooby's and it showed tickets were $20, she's like, buy them.
Yeah.
And mind you, this is coming from my wife. Like, Louis had the stuff that went on with him, and his show was so great.
Yeah.
And he talked about the COVID stuff. And one thing that stood out to me, he's like, everybody's wearing their masks, all that. He's like, people have ugly eyes. He's like, I'd rather look at an asshole than look at mouse. And, he's like, I'm sitting there walking up and down the street, and he's like, people are saying hi to me. He's like, women are coming up, hey, how are you doing? And he's like, they only knew who the hell they were saying hi to, So, and Louie's just such a great guy. I mean, I had shot him something to maybe try to get him on a podcast. It's one of those ones you just take a shot in the dark, see what happens. But, yeah, definitely. Like, we were cracking up.
Yeah, he's a great comic.
He's a funny dude.
Yeah.
Who's some of your favorite guys that you worked with?
Kevin Meaney was the first time I ever featured at a comedy club at Magoobies. It was I got told it was Kevin Meaney, and as a kid growing up, my favorites were Robin Williams and Kevin Meaney.
Oh yes,
and he was the guy. That's not right. Walking around with your big pants on.
Yeah.
And so I got to meet Kevin Meaney, and I was like, oh man. And this is like just after he came out as being gay.
Yeah.
So there was actually, he was trying to get to his car, and people were like, Kevin, you want to smoke some weed with us? He was like, I can't, I'm gay. Ran to his car.
And like me, it's funny because me growing up, my dad loved George Carlin. So George Carlin, and the bad part is today George Carlin can never exist.
Oh, no,
in today's
most guys
society.
couldn't.
Yeah, George Carlin did not give one single fuck about anything.
I love Patrice O'Neill. He'd be canceled. He'd be canceled today in about 2 minutes.
But George Carlin was a totally different his earlier albums, it's all this observational stuff, and he didn't really get gritty until his later stuff.
But no, like I mean, George Carlin was great. I also always liked Lewis Black.
Oh yeah,
Lewis Black, just that scream comedy that he would do.
He just performed. He has a special that's out now because my buddy Justin on 98 Rock.
We know Justin. We ran a couple of wrestling shows.
If you guys are wrestling and don't know Justin, then you're not doing wrestling.
And he did a couple of shows with us for the wrestling show stuff. So. Pretty much. Also, shout out to everybody watching us on Facebook Live. We do air live every week, so keep in mind, if you want to see the guests early, and if you want to interact with them, make sure you tune in on Facebook Live to be able to interact. And Tommy, you're an experienced leathersmith, which is awesome. Like, you came in, you had a bag that you made, and it's just the detail that went into it. I'm like, well, shit, we can probably have him re-leather the championship belts that we have.
Belts, all sorts of
stuff. How did the whole leathersmith thing come up?
I've always been my mom was a big crafter. Yeah. And I've always been like a crafty kid into art classes and stuff on weekends. And I started I started LARPing in my late teens, early 20s. I LARPed for 11 years. For those who don't know, LARP is live action role play. And I would love to tell you that it's not a bunch of fat guys throwing socks at each other, but it's just pillow fighting.
Oh man,
but it is full contact.
Yeah, it looks like it gets very severe. Now with the LARP, I was going to ask you about the LARPing stuff. But with the LARPing, have you ever had something to where someone got killed in the beginning, and let's say the whole scene went on for an hour? Do you lay there dead? The whole time.
It never takes an hour. At most, big battles will take 7 minutes.
Okay.
But through LARPing, though, I mean, I've knocked a guy unconscious before, and that was all right. But so there's foam fighting LARPing. Yeah. But then there's other things like the SCA where you wear a steel grill. You have to wear a helmet with a grill.
Holy
you have to wear elbow cops. Wrist guards.
That's like some medieval shit.
Yeah, because you're beating each other with rattan sticks, which is what that papasan's made out of. And then you have a plywood shield, and that was there's this big event in Pennsylvania. It lasts 2 weeks. Over 10,000 people attend. You camp.
Holy shit!
And it turns into the little town in the middle turns into a Renaissance festival. So you're in your tent, and you're like, I'm gonna go into town, but 4,000 people fight.
Yeah.
So the teams of 2,000 versus 2,000 get on this field, and then they actually have a can. Have you ever? Wow. I've never heard a bagpipe and been like, "Oh, this is appropriate." What appropriate music! But when you're wearing 90 pounds of armor in the hot August sun, and there's a guy on the side going, "Hey," you're like, "Fuck yes, let's fucking get it."
Well, we can't say shit. We put on spandex and pretend to fight each other.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. But see, and. Yeah, what he just said with the LARPing is it's not people hitting each other with socks. Yeah, everybody always misconstrues with wrestling. Also, like, hey, this is fake. It's like,
Oh,
well,
no, you
no.
still do
When I
it.
chop him, I'm chopping the shit out of
Yeah.
him. That's the way it is. When
There's a
you
reason
guys are
I'm
hitting each other with
comfortable.
those swords
Yeah.
and maces and all that,
Well,
you're
we had-
actually, you know.
With the LARPing thing, like you have a sword that has a basket hilt on it, so you're basically fully protected. But we go into this big thing, 2000 versus 2000, when they have a cannon, pow, and you can actually feel the ground under your feet trembling as like 8,000 boots are hitting them, right?
It feels like you're on the Civil War. You're like, am I in 1817 right now?
And
What's happening?
It sucks up until this point, like right as you're about to hit someone, and as soon as you make that first contact, instant hard. You're just like, oh my god, this feels so good. But the head of our troop had told us, because we came from a foam fighting thing where it's more football like.
Okay.
This one they have more rules, like, okay, don't go for the knees, don't go for the elbows. And you're not supposed to tackle anybody.
Okay.
But he did say that, because these organizations, they have tournaments where you become a knight. And when you get a knight, you can put a feather on your helmet.
Nice.
And a lot of times, the knights, if you're not another knight, they won't take your hits. If you're hitting them, and they'll just blow it off and then just kill you and keep moving on.
Yeah.
And he was like, look, you give them 3 good hits to the helmet. If they don't take it, you take that basket and you punch them in the face. And we're like, okay. So the very first fight that I did in this 2000 versus 2000 thing, I start running, and there were 2 guys staggered maybe 5 feet back. And the first guy, I just did what's called a shield bash. I just ran into him with my shield and knocked him out of the way, and kept moving, and then just hauled off and just punched his buddy right in the face. And the guy's like, "Kang!" And he's like, "Good hit, my lord!" And just laid on the ground.
Now, with the live action role playing, have you ever had it to where, or seen anything to where there's rivalries? Like 2 guys don't like each other, so when they're out there, they're actually trying to kill each other.
Oh yeah, I've been one of those guys. And the other guy was
You know what?
on my team.
Fuck you,
like,
Jimmy. Fuck you.
I didn't like him, and then they were like, okay, it was like a free for all once, and I went right at him, and he came right at me, and we just fought each other so hard. Well, because as a kid, I would, I'd get into fights in my neighborhood, and after you have a fight with somebody, you're like, hey, you're all right. And then, they become, like, your good friend.
Oh, yeah,
Nowadays, you can't fight somebody and then become friends with them.
They might pull a gun on you.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if you have a different opinion than somebody,
Oh,
you
yeah,
can't be friends.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, what?
If you perform for Louis C.K., you can't be friends with
Yeah. And see, here's the thing, and we're not a politically driven podcast at all, but if you vote a certain way, people will write you off. Mm-hmm. It's insane the way society is, with just writing people off for the dumbest shit in the world. And it's like, man, like, I want to have friends 10 years ago.
We don't do that here, otherwise I would have never been on the show.
Now, you said that you did the improv.
Yeah.
With the improv, that's always fun because that makes you think on your feet. And actually,
it's like wrestling.
Yeah, and we've had a couple of guys come down before and do improv training with a lot of guys, because my main thing is, and I don't know how familiar you are with pro wrestling, but my main thing is calling it in the ring. I'm like, you guys can rehearse this shit as much as you want in the back, but guess what? When you're out here in front of a live crowd and we can't stop and you do this again, you need to know how to lock a headlock and be like, all right, this is the direction that we're going.
Or that situation where like Mick Foley got, choke slammed through the top of the ring.
Yeah, that was all called. That was all called right there on the spot. He looked at Taker, he's like, throw me. And Taker was like, what? He's like, throw me or I'm going to throw you.
Yeah.
So Taker fucking threw him off the top of the cage. And, so improv has a lot of that. With the improv, was that kind of like more of like a schooling type thing, or did you do that in front of live crowds?
There was definitely, when I started, because like I said, my end goal was always I wanted to do stand-up, but I was scared because I was like, I don't know how to write jokes. I'll just try to go up and be funny.
Yeah.
And every week we would do practice. And then he would eventually book us a gig, and we would go and perform in front of like a live crowd and everything. And then we actually went out to Chicago, has a big improv scene.
Okay.
And they have the Chicago Improv Festival. So I signed up for classes at the Chicago Improv Festival, and just met with other improvers and everything, and came back like, oh, improv is love. Oh, it's the best thing ever. And now I don't need, now, but so now every now and then, comedians will put on a show with improvisers.
Okay.
And, hey, come on, do you want to join in? Or one of the other things is they'll have a comic go up, do like a 5-minute set, which the improvers will then base their improv off of the material.
Gotcha. Now, with comedy, how much of your comedy show is based off a real life experience?
All of it.
Because I sit there and I look at comedy all the time. I sit there and I look at Louis and other guys, and they sit there and talk about their kids, their wives, all that. I'm like, these are real stories, and some of the stories we tell, we sit there, we're like, these are so wild. Some of this is just so wild and just so out there that there's no way this can be made up.
Yeah,
like, no way that it can be.
Well, I have a 10-minute bit about doing mushrooms, which go DC, Oregon was just like, it's worth the dysentery now. You can go there and do whatever you want. But I have
mushrooms are a hell of a drug.
Yeah. I have a 10-minute mushroom bit, but it's one story, but it's the combination of like a bunch of different times that I've done mushrooms. And then like the end of it is, the end. I didn't really, I did piss my pants at Royal Farm, but so it all happened, but you have to twist certain things or enhance certain parts of it. Yeah, if you write something like, so the other day I was abducted by space aliens, and I'm like, no one can relate to that.
Well, it's funny because actually last night I did a 4-way call with some of my buddies, and our one buddy Bill, he has a tumor in his brain, going through all that stuff, and he's also a veteran, so he talks about going to Walter Reed Hospital, and he was telling us pretty much how he would get sponge bath, and he said there was this little 4-foot tall Vietnamese woman that would come and sponge bath him, and just the way he told it, he's like, he's like, and then she told me, okay, we'll turn over, and he's like, she took the cloth and she wiped my asshole, and that's the cleanest my asshole has ever been, and he's just sitting there describing all this, and he's like, there was a time I was at VA, and there was this young girl who was sitting there, and he's like, I have to shit on like the little plastic thing they brought in, and he's like, look, are you good? And she's like, I've seen this before, and he's just kind of like, no, you haven't. You're not ready for this. And he said, next thing you know, she's sitting there watching him, like the way they sit there, they stand in that glass thing and look over inmates in a prison. She's just looking down on them with that, and and we're dying, and it sucks because it's sad because of what's going on with him. But he's making so much light out of the situation, and it's like, oh man, like that's absolutely hilarious.
During night, I lost my spleen when I was 23. Right, I did a belly flop off of a jungle gym and landed on a railroad tie, and my ribs just.
Wait, how does that happen? How is there a railroad tie in a jungle gym?
It was the railroad tie, the wooden part, right? And it was around the jungle gym to hold the mulch in. Okay. And my buddy was like, my buddy was jumping. Okay. He was jumping off the top of the jungle gym and landing flat on his feet. And then I was like, you have to like tuck and roll. Yeah. And so then he did it again. He hit flat. Yeah. And then he rolled on the ground. And I was like, no, you have to collapse into it. He was like, you do it. I was like, no, I'll get hurt. And he was like, you're not going to get hurt. I was like, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll run across there, put my foot on that bar to jump. That bar's going to spin, and I'm going to face plant the whole way down. And he's spinning the bar. He's like, you went. And so then I had to be like, so I'm up there about ready to jump. Right? And the whole time my brain is saying, don't do this. And I had to be like, I had to repeat the mantra, don't think, just jump. Don't think, just jump. And I ran, put my foot on the bar spun, and I fell 10 feet and just did a belly flop right on that railroad tie. But when I was in the hospital...
The obvious question, did it hurt?
At first I hit the ground, I was like, I am still conscious.
I'm alive!
And I was like, I should breathe. Yeah.
It's a better bump than we've taken.
But I do remember being in the hospital, and I had when they pull out your guts and put them back in, it locks everything up. Like, you don't shit for a couple days. So they kept checking on me, like, hey, have you shit yet? And I'm like, no. And so finally, they're like, all right, we'll give you a suppository. Yeah. So this thick nurse just comes in, right? She looked like the Hulk, like smart Hulk. Yeah. And she was like, I'm here to give you your suppository. And I was like, okay. And she was like, oh no, sweetie. Yeah. And I had to turn around and she had to put it up my ass.
Yeah, and he was actually telling us about that. He had to get a suppository, and then there was a time he couldn't poop. So he gave him milk and magnesia, and he said his asshole just dropped for like 12 hours.
That's like insult to injury. I have no spleen, and now I've got something in my ass.
Yeah. And well, I said the woman, she was like, I just have to get it past the ring. And I'm like, mine or yours?
Well, he said that he had a little roommate in there, like an older guy who was like in his 80s. He didn't have 2 legs, and he's sitting there, and the guy's just kind of laughing at it, So they bring him in breakfast. And, he's like, I don't know. I forgot what the guy's name was, but we'll just say that it was Earl. He'd be like, hey, Earl, you think I should eat this breakfast? And Earl's like, no, man, you don't want to eat the breakfast. So he eats the breakfast. So, and then he's like, next thing you know, of course, the last 8 hours, his asshole's falling. So his asshole falls out another 12. And he's like, I never want to go through that ever again. And he said that the guy that was there, and this goes to show with VA, and my dad was a veteran. I said before, VA care is terrible. It's always been terrible. And they never know how to take care of the veterans. And so this guy is missing 2 legs. So he kept on pressing the button for him having the piss. And mind you, my friend Billy, he's on seizure watch, so he doesn't have seizures. So he's pressing the button. Eventually, Billy gets up, walks down to the counter on seizure watch, goes, hey, look, dude needs a piss. You guys need to come down here. He said, they're all cutting up. They're like, we'll be down there soon, blah, blah, blah. So, Billy was like, well, what the fuck? So eventually, he said somebody came, held, the thing for him. He pissed, and then he had to piss again later on. So he's hitting the thing. And he's like, you know what? Fuck this. And because they weren't coming. So he pissed all over the floor. So they come in and they're like, oh, what the fuck? So they pissed all over the floor. And I looked at Billy and I'm like, you had your milk and magnesia shit going on. I'm like, you should have just dropped shit. They just come in there pissing shit all over the floor. And
I had a buddy that used to, he was an orderly at, what is that place called? There's this senior retirement center over in Arbutus.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of it.
Is it one of the Lorians?
No.
Okay.
Anyway, but he said that one time he was walking down the hall and there was this old guy in the it was out of his mind, right, with dementia, was on the bed and kept throwing his bed sheet out and pulling it back in, and throwing the bed sheet out and pulling it back in. And he was like, he turned on the light, he was like, what are you, no, I'm good. All right. He was like, what are you doing? He was like, I'm fishing. And he was like, all right. So he said later that day, he's coming back, and now the guy's on the corner of the bed in the dark, like eating something, right? And so he turns on the light, and the guy had shit in his own hand and was eating to the point that his gums were like there was blood and shit. And he was like, "What are you doing?" And he was like, "I caught my fish."
All right. Speaking of that, this brought up a story. This was probably a couple of weeks ago, and I'll touch on both. I deliver copiers for a living, so I'm sitting there. I stop at Wawa to grab something quick to eat, and I'm sitting there in my truck, and I'm looking. And I see this guy. I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? He's like just looking in his mirror, just doing something. He's like going at his teeth. I'm like, he looked like a junkie, I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? So he's sitting there, and I just happened to look, and he had a screwdriver in his hand. He is digging at his teeth with a screwdriver. And I'm like, man, he's going in hard, like he's like, in his mirror.
Yeah.
So I'm watching. This is like 15 minutes worth. I'm like, I'm never going to see this ever again. I need to stay tuned on this. So I start to Snapchat the video a little bit to send it to my wife. And so I'm sitting there, and he's digging at it. And he sits there, and he drops the screwdriver, opens his door, picks the screwdriver back up, goes back at it again. And then he opens his van door, gets out, stands on his feet, I guess so he can get a vertical base. And he reaches down into the little side door, where the little compartment is in the side door. And he sits there, he reaches something, he drops something else on the ground, and he starts cussing at himself. And he sits there, and it was a pair of pliers. So, a pair of needle nose pliers. So he picks up the needle nose pliers, and he picks up the pliers. He looks the pliers as if they had eyes. Looks the pliers dead in the eyes, and starts yelling at the pliers. And he sticks them in his mouth and rips his tooth out. Throws the tooth on the ground, starts yelling at the tooth, throws the pliers on the ground, gets in his van, and drives away. And I'm just sitting there eating my little, chicken nugget gimmicks that I got from Wawa. This is by far one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
You're probably one of my usual characters.
Yeah. What
Dibs on that too.
Yeah, what did I just see right now? And speaking of the senior
I'm sorry,
homes,
but that still doesn't beat the old guy eating his own shit, though. That's going to be in my head for the rest of this podcast.
You never know what you're going to see in the senior homes. And I was once told, whenever you go into a senior home, never look in the rooms. Walk and just look straight or look down.
Yeah.
So he's like, whatever you do, don't look in the room. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, whatever. It can't be anything that bad. So you just sit there, you walk by, you just see Ethel, with her 98-year-old, flabby body standing there naked, screaming in her room, and you're just kind of like, all right, so this is my life right now. And and when you talked about the old guy eating the shit, we used to sneak in when we were younger, we used to sneak into some of the asylums, and there's the one in Sykesville. I forgot what it was called.
Spring Grove?
Spring Grove. Yeah, Spring Grove.
Grove.
We had snuck into Spring Grove. This was probably like 15 years ago. Sneak into Spring Grove. It was close to Halloween, and you could see the electroshock therapy tables on the front of the porches. So they still had all kinds of files and shit there. So we're like looking through the files, and one of the files was talking about a woman. What she did is she lured the guard to a room with sexual favors. And it was back in the time when they had those big rings of keys.
Yeah.
So she lured them in like, hey, like, I'll suck your dick, you know, come over here. And he's probably like, all right, you know,
Crazy
hey.
head.
Yeah, this sounds like a great idea. So she lures him in, and apparently what she did is she punched him in the dick, grabbed his keys, and just started beating him with his keys. And it was on one of those like retractor type things. So she's just hitting him. Like, I'm reading it. She's just hitting him with the keys. His face is all cut up. She locks him in the room and then unlocks all the doors, and everybody's just going fucking ape shit. And I'm like, how must that dude feel? Like, he's sitting there, he's locked in her room. His face is bleeding after being assaulted with keys. And the whole time he's just like, well, what do I do? Like, I'm probably going to lose my job.
Yeah.
Should I just jerk off and just get my nut
Yeah,
anyways?
like, it's worth it.
Yeah.
You probably know who to come and try.
What if she did suck his dick and then did all that?
Oh.
Like, okay, that works.
It was worth it.
Yeah. It's like bad pizza.
Yeah. Now, Tommy, what would you say was probably some of your worst experiences doing stand-up and doing, you know, whether it's live action role playing, all the stuff that you've done? What do you think stands out in your mind? And I know a lot of times when comedians have hecklers, and you always see, like, for example, Steve Hofstetter.
Yeah.
He's great for just slaughtering.
The best is the Bill Burr video in Philadelphia.
Oh,
Have you seen that?
yeah.
Where he just goes off on him for like 12 minutes.
Yeah.
I hope you people die.
Yeah.
I hope you drag off that faggot bridge.
Steve, I know Steve. I've been in 3 of his comedy festivals. We've had lunch together and gone to a ball game. And he got mad at me because one time I was like, hey, you get heckled a lot. And he got pissed at me and hasn't talked to me since.
And, well, it's funny because me and my wife fell down a huge rabbit hole watching his heckle stuff where he gets heckled and he just blows their shit up.
He destroys it.
And have you ever been in that situation where somebody just sat there and kind of heckled and you're like, oh, motherfucker, you want to come up here and do this?
When I was only like 3 years into comedy, I was in, my day job had me in Waukegan, Illinois, which is like 20 or 30 minutes north of Chicago. And there was a comedy club there, and I went and did their open mic. And I had such a good set at the open mic. They were like, hey, how long are you in town? Can you come like this Friday and be part of our showcase? And I was like, okay. We go there. The only crowd there was this drunken bridal party. And they were drunk and just constantly heckling and talking. And I started making fun of one woman. She came up to the stage, and I was so new, I didn't know you don't give the drunk woman the microphone.
Oh my god!
And yeah, it was the worst. I was just praying to see that light get off the stage, and I was like, thank God! I was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. But other than that, there was one woman that came up to me after one show and was like. She came up, she was like, hey, I saw your act. And I was like, okay, thank you. And she was like, I'd rather stab my eyes out with a needle than watch your act again. And I was like, okay, thank you. So, but yeah, other than that, LARPing, like I said, we're doing the LARPing, the padded LARPing, where it is, like I said, it's like football. Yeah. But because there's all this padding, everybody, but you're still wearing real steel and everything. But there was one time where they would, if you go camping for that, then it's they have an adventure all weekend. And like your character, I was a cleric, so I had spells and stuff like that. And there was one, they would have a module, which is like a dungeon that they had set up. And we go into this one room, we go in and they were like, you see, and there was like 8 guys standing there, like you see 8 iron statues. And we were like, okay. And then the guys start, as soon as we start trying to solve the puzzle, these guys start moving in. And we're hitting them and they're saying it's no effect. No effect. No. So we backed out into the previous room. So the guys reset. And we had a group with us. And we got them all together. And it was a bunch of people that weren't in our unit, like our country. And I was like, who has a shield? So we got everybody with shields together. Like when we go back in there, you shield bash all those guys. You put their dicks in the dirt, get them on the ground, lay on top of them until we can solve this mystery. So we go back in, and there was this big dude, a big fat kid, and he starts running. He starts like walking towards us.
Running? Was he running?
He wasn't running. He was just walking. He was wobbling towards.
He was aggressively walking,
like in Shaun of the Dead. That big fat guy.
Yes.
So I ran at him and I shield bashed him, but it didn't knock him over. It just he took a step back and like turned this way, and then my other buddy from over here shield bashed, and he turned back this way again and shield bashed one more time, and now he went down, and we both jumped on top of him, and he wasn't moving. And at first I was like, man, this guy's really cool with how we just treated him. Until like 5 seconds goes by, and he was like, hey, can you guys just let me get comfortable? And we're like, oh yeah. So we let him get comfortable, and then he was like, I think I lost consciousness for a little bit. So then that night when they had pit fights, which is like tournaments, and so we go down, I saw the guy, and I had a bottle of liquor on me, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give him a drink. So I go over and I was like, hey man, sorry about earlier, but you know, it was a good fight. And he was like, what? And I was like, I like your tunic. And he was like, huh? And I was like, oh shit, we can cuss that shit.
And dude, like that shit's real. Because me, myself, I've had 5 concussions. And
I've had 12.
5 that I know of. 5 that I know of. So there was a time where I was in a match with one of the guys. I'm going to shout out JD Bam Bam Roberts. You know JD. And we were doing a street fight at the wrestling school. It was a free show that we were having. And we did this spot maybe 4 or 5 times in the past. And what he did is he put a trash can over my head, and he came out with a long bull rope, and it had a cast iron cowbell on it, because we ended up having a bull rope match later on down the line. So we did the spot a few times. The only problem is we used a banged up trash can. So the trash can was already pretty dented up, so he puts it over my head, takes the cowbell, winds it up, bam, hits the trash can. Where he hit the trash can, it was already dented. That dent was on the back of my neck / my head. As soon as I heard the bam, things went dark. And then everything I remember after that was them shining a light in my eye, like, Ray, come on. And then someone was like, I'm going to touch your penis. And then, like I'm sitting there, and I didn't react, and they're like, yeah, he's fucked up. Like,
so I faked being out for a little bit till I got my penis done.
And apparently after that, like, he hit me, and I fell over in the can, and he just kept on hitting the can with the cowbell. And he said at some point, like, he took the trash can off me to pin me, and, like, he knew I was out of it, because in the middle of the match, and he said the fans could hear it and everything, you just hear me go, stop beating me. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. He's like, dude, you were just a little child's voice. Stop beating me. and like, dude, we did, like, it's amazing that when you're concussed like that, the things that you remember. Because there's been so many times that I've been in a match, and I don't remember finishing a match, but you go back and you wrestle, and you're like, I never knew I had a concussion. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's almost as if, like, you get knocked into the second half of your brain, and your brain has so much muscle memory that it's just kind of like, okay, well, I remember that. Like, it's insane. But yeah, when you brought that up, I thought about that.
There was another fighting organization called Markland, which was rattan poles, but it wasn't as beefy as, because you had to put pipe insulation on your rattan. But we definitely, I was wearing an end of a Freon can, like, you know those big Freon cans. Basically, they would make a helmet by just cutting the end off of it, cutting some eye holes in it, putting some padding in it, and that goes on your head. And I remember some guy had a 6-foot rattan stick. It was like a great sword, and just came straight down on the top of my head with it. And I felt hot air come out of my ears when he hit me, and immediately dropped to my knees, and I was like, I'm dead.
Well, comparison, and I could just be an idiot, and it could be the same stuff. But a kendo stick compared to a rattan stick.
Kendo stick it's bamboo, so it has a bit of give. It's more of that slap.
Those I've done a lot of wrestling. And Psycrotes, you've done a lot of death matches, but I've done a lot of shit in wrestling. I've done ladders, tables. You know, we did a match where there was barbed wire. Nothing to me has sucked more than a kendo stick.
Oh yeah, kendo.
I fucking hate kendo sticks. And same guy, JD, he beat the shit out of me with a kendo stick. And those things leave welts, so you get hit in the head. Like, it's just like, fuck?
I was working a show at Rivalries one time, and the guy went to give me a kendo stick across the back, and he got me right on the fucking funny mode. And I just screamed and jumped out of the ring. I was like, no, that's enough.
You ever get? I took a kidney shot once from a two-handed, and I was wearing a kidney belt. But I remember the next day when I used to be a land surveyor, and I was using a porta-john, and I was peeing, and the last drop was blood, and I was like, my dick's gonna fall off.
One thing, and I'm sure Psycrotes probably had this too, is that one thing that hurts the most in wrestling is somehow you'll be in a match, and I don't know how it tends to happen, but sometimes you'll end up and you'll do a move, and your balls will end up right here. Your balls will end up right here. And then for some reason you end up doing something where your legs go like that, and you crush your own balls. And you just go like, oh fuck. And like you're sitting there and you'll be like, all right, be like, yeah, I just smashed my own balls. Just give me a few boots. Just so they're like stomping you down while you're trying to come to. And I really had it happen twice. But it sucks. And I don't know how it does, because a lot of times when you take those falls, your legs are spread out, just somehow, some way, your testicles make that, and then you do one random thing, it's like boom, and you're like, oh fuck! And it's completely
in these organizations they have different ways you have to build your arrowheads. And there's archers that'll shoot these things. So it more feels like a soft punch to the face if you get hit in the head. But I've been at a full sprint before, and someone hit me right in the dick with an arrow. And like you're moving, and then your legs are the ones that just retract as you just hit the ground.
Oh my god. And what we're going to do actually right now is we're going to get into our beer of the week. And a lot of people are probably going to, call me a basic bitch, but...
We've got a real exotic one this week nobody's ever heard of.
Something nobody's ever heard of. And today's beer of the week, and it's only the beer of the week mainly because I was lazy and I had a lot left over from Halloween. It's just regular, basic ass bitch Bud Light.
Bud Light.
But for me, I've been a Bud Light guy. Tommy, I don't know what your go-to is, but me, it's always, if Samuel Adams Oktoberfest isn't available, it's Bud Light. That's my go-to. But we get all kinds of weird stuff. So shout out to Bud Light. Bud Light is our beer of the week. It's always a plus, always a solid. Anything by Bud. Bud Light Lime's good. Bud Light Orange is good. Bud Light Golden Wheat, I don't know if you ever had that. That was good. And Bud Light Platinum, I think, actually is better than...
What's that Bud Light Lime-A-Rita?
Don't forget
that one.
Oh, no. I don't really like the Rita as much. Yeah.
Don't forget Bud Ice.
And also, what we
Bud
have
Clamato.
here is we're going to shout out
Blood's favorite. Blood
loved the Lion last week.
Lionfish.
Yeah. And basically, Lion is over in St. Michael's, Maryland. They sent us out a thing of their black rum. So what we're going to do is, Tommy said he would go ahead and take a shot. So what we're going to do is we're going to pour ourselves some Lion, and we're going to do our shot of the month, which is Lion, which is over in St. Michael's, Maryland. So here we go. There's that. I'll try not to... Last week, I held this by the cap, and I dropped it on the floor. But I was able to save it before anything spilled out of it.
You scooped it off the floor and back in?
Yeah, the dogs had a feeding
dog
frenzy.
hair?
Yeah. The dogs were like, oh man, this tastes good. Like
whiskey and chocolate. They've had a healthy diet lately.
Oh yeah. Well, like the last month's beer, last month's shot of the month was Bird Dog Chocolate Whiskey. And that's a solid. If you want non-expensive, it was about $17. So, but it was pretty solid.
It made me wish I could still drink.
Yeah, and he has issues. He can't drink anymore. He's like, I'm having to just start drinking again and try this. So,
have you ever tried Screwball whiskey?
Yes, they said the peanut butter.
That's the peanut butter one.
Yeah.
It's won 6 Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards.
All right, so here we go. Bottoms up. There's that.
That's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, so once again, shout out to Lion Distillery. We were going to do an actual distillery tour over there, but due to COVID, that didn't happen. So hopefully one day we can get over there and sample some of their rum. If you're over in St. Michael's, pay them a visit. They also deliver to the door. They brought this to the door. So definitely pay them a visit. And Tommy, you also, we appreciate you coming over onto the podcast, but you yourself have your own podcast.
Yeah. We have 2 podcasts, actually. We did, pre-COVID, we were doing Laugh Finder, which was, it's 6 comedians. Actually, it's 5 comedians One of the guys is actually the producer of the 98 Rock Morning Show.
Okay.
Another, we have WYPR radio personality Aaron Haken,
Okay.
who is always the odd man out because we've had to explain to him what hentai is. And then other comedians, Dorian Gray, who's been on Wyatt Cenac's Night Train, Brian Preston, who has written 2 movies that are on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
You got Eric Woodworth and myself. We're the 2 least accomplished. We've just just toured with Armed Forces Entertainment and stuff. But we would get a guest on and interview the guest for like 20 minutes, and then we play Dungeons and Dragons with them.
Oh, sweet.
In an ongoing adventure.
And that has to be fun because you get multiple personalities. Like one of my friends, he's actually one of the old. I told you before we started up, we used to do a TV show, Happy Hour TV.
Mm-hmm.
He actually was one of the old Happy Hour TV co-founders, co-hosts. Shout out to Alex Lunar. He did Dungeons and Dragons, and we would play all the time. And when you would get me playing, especially when I had some alcohol, that made for a very interesting situation because I was just kind of like, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker over here. Well, why? Because he has a stupid face. That's why. So
we had our 3rd season. It was one of our longest seasons. Every time we finish an adventure, that's a season.
Yeah.
And our 3rd season was the longest one. Not every cast member made it out of that season. There were cast changes. But Aaron from WYPR, who's a very upstanding blah blah, we found out he had an alcohol problem.
Really?
Because there was an episode where before we even hit start to record, he killed a 6-pack. And by the end of the 2 hours that we played, at the very end, he would always go, "Will they be able to defeat them? Find out next time." So before that, he stood up, took off his headphones, moved his chair out, laid on the floor, and just passed out. And he slept on the floor of the studio until the next day at 3 a.m.
Nice.
But and so we had that show, and then because of COVID, we were recording at Magooby's, Magooby's Joke House. But since COVID, we now do everything on Zoom on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. If you're on Facebook, Laugh Finder, you can watch us without a guest. But now we've also have a spin-off show called Laugh Finder Game Night, where we now have a guest on, we interview them, and then we play Jackbox games like Quiplash.
Nice.
You ever play any Quiplash or anything?
I've heard of Quiplash. I haven't actually played it, but if you want me to come on one day, definitely, because that would help us promote this, and definitely, I'll come on and play Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
I don't care.
Well,
I haven't been refreshed on the rules because I haven't played it in a while.
We had Michael Winslow on of Police Academy like a couple weeks ago, and like we thought, this will be fun. He might make a couple noises. He wouldn't shut the fuck up. It was constant noise, and like my buddy who got me in touch with him was like, if there's any podcast you guys that you could think of that would like to have Michael on, I was like, absolutely. And so I told everybody, and then I had to go back around. I was like, be prepared that you will get nothing done on your podcast because he's making car alarm noises the entire time.
Which, honestly, that's kind of cool all in the same thing. Because you're sitting there, you're trying to interview, and you just... what's happening right now?
It was so bad that the one guy who does the 98 Rock Morning Show, they actually had me on 98 Rock to talk about how disruptive Michael Winslow was.
And what we're going to do real quick, we do a couple of games. We do Never Have I Ever.
Okay.
And I'm sure you've played Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah.
So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with Never Have I Ever. What I normally do is just grab random cards
Can you give me another
out
beer
of the box.
Is that a drink? Are we playing a drink?
Definitely. All right, there we go.
Thank you.
You never have to ask, can I have another beer on the Happy Hour podcast? Of course you can have another beer.
Delicious. Blue Light.
All right, so Never Have I Ever. This is the card that I randomly picked out of the box. Never have I ever had sex with 2 people who are related. And I myself can sit there and say, I have not. I don't think, just sitting there looking back, I don't think that's a very awkward situation. You know, even with wrestling influence, or I don't.
Surprisingly, I don't think I have either.
I'd be very surprised to find out if they were.
I have been to West Virginia a lot, so
I mean, there's been times where I found out that it'd be like the kind of thing where you were like Eskimo brothers or something like that.
Yeah.
But not 2 people who were related or
no, I don't think
like
so.
That.
I hope not.
All right, so this This is Cards Against. We're going to get into the Cards Against Humanity.
Okay.
And normally the way we do this, we do a little bit different on the podcast because obviously we can't play a round of Cards Against Humanity. It would be easy because you're here in
Well,
person.
Quiplash is a lot like Cards Against Humanity, except you're giving your own white card for the black card.
Cool.
Yeah.
That would be very interesting because I'm a very fucked up individual.
Yeah. Oh, we did. Yeah, we found out one of the co-hosts was uncircumcised. And so constant. We've even had shirts on our website. We have the fantastic foreskin shirt.
Yeah. Well, we want to start doing themed shirts. Make sure you go check us out at Spreadshirt and teespring.com. Pick up some Happy Hour podcast merchandise. We are going to have a shirt done up based off of last week's episode where Psycrotes said he performed in front of 5 fans and a dog. So the shirt is going to say 5 fans and a dog. Psycrotes. So make sure you check those out. Look out for that. Probably, hopefully, within the next month or two, we will have the design done up, and it will be available on Spreadshop/Teespring. The reason why there's 2 is because Spreadshop has hats. We can do hats of various variety of stuff. So
real quick, we had one season of our podcast where it was a sci-fi themed, right?
Okay.
And one of our guys ended up becoming a wrestler, and one of his opponent was called his name was the Sphincter Ripper. So people and people were doing.
Please tell me he did a promo.
So,
dude, I gotta see that. That's good. That's amazing.
So we made shirts that say Sphincter Club.
Yes. Instead of Balor Club.
Yeah.
Sphincter Club.
And it's a woman in a G-string, her butt cheeks, and these 2 hands about.
If you guys ever want to take that any further, keep in mind we do have the EWA Paint Factory. You're always welcome to come down there and film anything you want there.
Okay.
So just let me know. Just let me know. I'll talk to Jim Christian, who's the owner. You guys want to come up?
Okay.
We'll do some stuff there. We'll arrange it. Even if you want to do your podcast there, because today we were supposed to do stuff at the Paint Factory. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, there's some other stuff that's going on there. Saturday advanced training class. So we will be at the Paint Factory probably for the next 2 episodes for our in-house guests. However, stuff happens, but. What we're going to do is we're going to get onto our Cards Against Humanity.
Okay.
And this is, I call these the most revered cards in Cards Against Humanity. Whenever I play with my wife, she's always like, discard these. And that's the 2 answer cards. Yes. And I'm like, I do the best with the 2 answer cards. So this one is, my mom freaked out when she looked at my browser history and found blank.com/blank. And the way we do it is we'll read it off and then we'll read you options. Okay. And you just pick what you think will be the best, and I can repeat them if need be. So my mom freaked out when she looked at my browser history and found blank.com/blank. Rush Limbaugh's soft, shitty body, a smiling black man, a Latina businesswoman, a cool Asian and some whites, moderate to severe joint pain, alcoholism, getting in her pants politely, panda sex, a micropenis, and cheating in the Special Olympics.
Ooh. Okay.
And here, since you're here in person, I'll hand these to you.
Okay.
And here, I'll hand you that one too. And it'll be completely 100% your call on what you think will best describe my mom found me looking up blank.com/blank.
5-star matches /push-ups.
Alright, I'm going to say, my mom freaked out when she looked at my browser history and found cheating on SpecialOlympics.com/Rush Limbaugh's shitty mom.
Could you imagine that? Like, what would that even, like, and it makes me sit there and fathom that. Like, when I saw that card, like, I looked at some of them earlier, I'm like, what the fuck did I just draw out of this deck? Because I literally just pull out a black card and I pull out like 6 white cards. And so pretty much I sit there and I'm like, what happens if you actually type this into your web browser?
Yeah.
Like, what comes of that?
The FBI agent that's watching it was like...
And those watching at home, they see what's transpiring right now. Unfortunately, my wife wasn't here. She's in Lancaster right now buying Christmas decorations with her cousin, so she can't watch the dog. So I'm on dog duty today, and my dog is licking Tommy's head like, hello, pay attention to me.
That's a good puppy. He's a good puppy.
So, Tommy, definitely let us know. Definitely come on. We'll play. We'll play some games, have some fun. Is there anything that you want to promote out there where people can find you and find your podcast?
You can go to laughfinderpod.com to see our Dungeons and Dragons podcast. We're in season 5, which means there's 5 adventures that our party has been on. Right now, our party's nickname is the Arson Dudes.
The Arson Dudes.
Because we just burn things down when we're done with them. But in our season 2, like, we had a home base and we decided on the name Pizza Pussy Town.
You know, and this is the kind of thing. Tommy strikes me as the kind of guy, and I said this. Professional wrestlers are probably some of the most fucked up individuals you ever meet in your life. Like me, Psycrotes, and our other, comrade Blood. We've all known each other for 21 years. We all met each other, training together when we first got into the business. And we've also traveled with each other more times. There's been times, and I know a lot of fans at home, they hear this. What we would do is we would go to shows because Blood would call me and he would call Psycrotes and go, hey, look. Hey, Chase, Psycrotes, I wrestled under Chase Rawlings or under Gold Thumb, early on. Hey, guys, there's going to be a midget stripper in West Virginia. There's a show 15 minutes from that place. Let's get booked on that show.
Just to go to the strip club.
We'll wrestle the first match, and strip clubs in West Virginia are up until 4. So there used to be a strip club we would go to called Legs. And Legs was the best.
Infamous Legs.
And Legs, we would get there, it would be about 11 o'clock. There was a night we went there, they did, what was it?
25 cent beer.
25-cent draft beers.
Oh, man.
So we all went there and threw down 20s. Had this big 3-dimensional pyramid. And what Legs was, we were like, man, this is awfully small for a strip club. And Blood and Psycrotes, they'd been there before. I'm like, this is awfully small for a strip club. I'm used to Larry Flynt's Hustler Club. Larry Flynt's Hustler Club. We had a really great relationship with them for Happy Hour TV. We interviewed Jesse Jane 4 times for them. Actually, speaking of which, our fully fermented vintage interview this month for the month of November is going to be our first interview we had with porn star Jesse Jane. Nice. So that is coming up on the docket for November. Be on the lookout for that. That'll probably drop in a week or 2. But no, we so we're sitting there looking, and I'm like, man, like this place seems awfully small. So at 12 o'clock, all these lights and smoke start going, and you have these mirrors that extend all over the whole entire place to where you can see back. At that point, the mirrors just start opening like this. And there's a whole nother fucking side. And everybody's there, and you're sitting there in your truck, you're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. There's girls on that side, too. There's 10 girls here, there's 10 girls there, and you just run your ass over there. And, I don't know if you've ever been to a strip club where there's been a midget stripper. But I've always said, and our other co-host, Matt, who unfortunately couldn't make it today, his bachelor party was at Hustler Club. And he got a lap dance from a midget. And she ended up inadvertently kneeing him in the face, trying to put her leg over his shoulder to dance on him. And I've always said that a lap dance from a midget is legitimately a lap dance. Because what they do is they stand on your lap and they dance. And that.
Well, you know what else is good on a midget? If they're going to give you a blowjob, they don't have to go on their knees.
Yeah. Oh, no. See, a midget doesn't go down on you. A midget goes up on you.
We had, doing my day job, we were out in Hagerstown. Back I worked for an underground utility locating company. We had holes we had to dig. And we found, while we're taking the digging rig to try to find where the holes were, we found this off-the-road strip club.
Oh, those are the
We've probably been there because we used to work at Hagerstown all the time.
And we were like, okay, we'll put a pin on this.
Yeah.
And then, so that night we went from the hotel out to that strip club.
Yeah.
And like they had a liquor store attached.
Yeah.
And it was BYOB. So they would charge you out the ass for whatever. And then it would charge you a bottle fee when you got, and like, I just bought it next door. But it was all black lit, and the girls out in Hagerstown would come out and smile, and it was jack-o'-lantern.
Nice. Nice.
But there was one.
Hey, you sit there, you're sitting there, you're thinking, you're drinking, you're like, I'm getting laid tonight.
But so the stage was level with your lap, right? So we're in the front row, and you could smoke cigarettes inside. So we're smoking inside, and the stripper gets down and starts crawling onto my lap. We're like, what the fuck? And I accidentally burnt her with my cigarette. I was like, and it was like, and she didn't even flinch. She just looked up at me. She was like, I felt that.
But
Well,
here's
the thing, and I hope me and Psycrotes are going the same place with this. Psycrotes is the type of guy, he never wears shoes, and he never wears underwear.
Okay.
So, he's also the type of guy that he pretty much comes on command.
Okay.
So, like, pretty much a lap dance will get him there. So, the first time I ever went to said legs, Blood's sitting there looking at me, he's like, Psycrotes is going to come on that stripper. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? And he's like, well, watch what happens. So she's sitting there giving him a lap dance, lap dance happening. You just see Psycrotes go, oh. And you just see her hop up, and she's just kind of like, what the fuck? And Blood's just like this. He tells me, he's like, told you he was going to come on that stripper. I'm just kind of like, what's happening right now?
When you gotta go, you gotta go. But no, where I was going to say the only thing hotter than toothless strippers, old guy eating shit.
Yes. Yeah.
How about getting a lap dance from a toothless stripper while watching an old guy eating shit? There we go. I'm going to have a dream about that tonight.
All right, well, that's your .com.
There we go.
And honestly, I forgot to ask you about this. I was doing some research, and I saw that you starred in a movie called The Call Girl of
Cthulhu.
Yeah, I can never say that right.
I didn't star in it. I did audition for it.
Please tell me the name is a takeoff of the Metallica song.
Please tell me that was a porn movie of some kind.
There's a local filmmaker in Baltimore, Chris LaMartina.
Okay.
And he's done several movies that I've done voiceover work for. One's on Shudder right now.
Nice.
And I was like, fuck
awesome,
yeah. And I watched it, and like you could see the comments from people on Shudder. I'm like, gonna not look at these things. But he was like, hey, I want you to audition for this movie. I went in, I thought I nailed the audition. Turns out I didn't get the part. They went with a young black woman. I'm not even fucking lying.
You auditioned for a part as a man that a young black woman
got the part. I'm like, okay, you went in a different direction. Okay. But I did do the leather work I designed their Necronomicon, their spell book and everything.
Nice.
Which I hated because he was like, can you do 2 of these? One we're going to destroy, and the other's going to be good. And I was like, I don't like to do 2 of everything because
that's more work for me.
Well, no, because I wanted to add in these little details that looked like it had like boiling flesh and stuff.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to replicate that. And I had to actually message him like, can I do them different? And he was like, no, they have to look the same. I was like, fuck. But then he actually ended up marrying the call girl from that movie. Yeah, he auditioned her. They fell in love on set and they got married. Now she does a thing where she performs. She like an Elvira type. Where she hosts horror movies under the name Aurora Borealis. Nice.
Please tell me that there's a sex scene of some kind in that movie between her and Cthulhu.
Can I tell you? I've never watched the movie. Because I didn't get the part.
I need to watch that movie. Then that way I can watch the movie and try to ping where your character would have been. I'd be like, that's a young black woman. That could have been Tommy. That could have been Tommy right there.
No, it's a lesbian scene.
Be like, wait a minute. So, if Tommy
I was going to have to
this,
scissor this woman.
Be like, so they sit there and be like, hey Tommy, what we need you to do is we need you to tie your dick to your leg, because the whole thing is we really be like, we saw your stuff when you were the grape.
You're the California raisin. You look so good in that blackface.
We
raisin face. I was in raisin face.
Be like, we saw your raisin face, and we need you to be a young black woman, and we need you to scissor this other woman.
All right, I'll tuck for you guys.
Also, can you make 2 Necronomicons? You're like, look, this is where I'm going to draw the line.
Hold on, guys.
You had me as being a young black woman and scissoring with another woman. However, 2 Necronomicons? Fuck you guys.
That's like when people are like, hey, you can't use blackface if you're doing cosplay. And I'm like, well, how are they going to tell War Machine?
And how would they know when I was Kobe Bryant for Halloween the one year? I'm not saying I did it.
I had a buddy, like, this was back in early 2000s. I used to go to, like, these goth industrial clubs, and it was on Halloween, and I showed up, my buddy who's, like, 6'3", he was Morpheus. He's a big white guy and was Morpheus from the Matrix, and it painted himself up. And I was like, dude, you can't fucking do this.
You can't do
What are you doing?
No, I think and speaking of which, Halloween just ended, a week or two ago. I think my best costume that I've ever done, me and my wife do a lot of couples costumes. We did Schitt's Creek this year. Schitt's Creek is huge. I was David Rose and she was Stevie.
Now,
and the whole family
did.
did.
Oh
yeah.
Okay.
The whole, I'll show you pictures when we're done. The whole family did it. And her aunt and uncle were Johnny and Moira.
Okay.
And then her cousin was
Roland? Roland
no,
shit?
no. Yeah, her one cousin was Roland.
Okay.
And then her other cousin was the sister and the boyfriend. And so pretty much our whole family did Schitt's Creek for Halloween. But I think my all-time favorite was, 2008.
I think I know which one you're going to go
I took a particle board. I painted it gray. And one of my coworkers lended me her random vibrating penis.
Yeah,
and
his coworker lended it to him. He didn't have it himself.
And what I did is I epoxied it to the board, and I wrote glory hole on it with the arrows pointing down. And then we went to Fells Point. And I'm telling you this now, I have never seen so many random strange women and men blow this random strange penis on Halloween night. I'm just sitting there, I'm like, Kevin just sucked this, and now Christina is. Like, I don't understand. Like,
So
does that count for your notch count?
I don't know.
So back when I was like early on in comedy, and we were going to Damon's at a rib joint on Sunday night, and I build shit, right?
Yeah,
I used to be, I was dabbling in prop comedy, right?
Yeah.
But I bought a 2-foot double-headed dildo, right? Which I am the color of a double-headed dildo, okay? And I built a rig so that I could strap it to my leg. And the end of it, I tied fishing string and a ring. So if I raised my hands, it would pull 1.5 feet of cock out of the front of my pants that was puppeted by my hand, right? And so I go to Damon's with this rig, and I get up and I was like, I want to thank everybody for being here, but mostly I want to thank the Lord Jesus.
Oh,
and I pulled a foot at a rib joint where families are eating. and people were like, it got no laughs. And so I had to go. And
that's the thing, like, you get someone like me, I mean, that's fucking it, that's a dick.
It got nothing.
What would Jesus do? He'd pull out his penis.
Some old guy's just sitting there cutting his steak. Like, what the fuck is this? That man's got an elephant dick.
But yeah, so it didn't work, and I never did it again. But I now own a double-headed dildo that we would use when we lived in this apartment. We would use it as protection. If we knew maintenance was coming in and there was some place we didn't want them to go, we just leave the double-headed dildo there.
Nice. Please tell me you've LARPed with that. Please tell me.
No, there was a guy though that built.
You should have put spikes on it.
He built a flail that was a double-headed dick, and he would go around and like beat people with this.
Sell the dildo,
or like kind of like a little like gun that like fires that thing out, like a t-shirt cannon.
Just have that
He
wobble.
fires Mountain Dew White out.
And with that being said, we are running short on time. Tommy, thank you for being on the
thanks
Happy
for
Hour
having me, guys.
podcast.
This
We
was
need
great.
to have you back. This was great. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back next week with author D.A. Gilbert. He's promoting his book, A Serpent's Love. We may be at the Pain Factory. We may be here. Either way, we'll be on Facebook Live. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for Psycrotes, for Tommy. Of course, I'm Ray. This is the Happy Hour podcast. We'll see you next week. Buy some of our shit. All right, sweet.
All right, man.
End the live feed and whoa.
That was fun.